Assalamu alaikum, hope you all are fine. Today we will discuss about storage in Android. If you are not a subscriber of this channel, please subscribe this channel. Also like our Facebook page at UKTections tutorial. So the topic of the today is storage in Android. We generally store data in our applications. We are using databases, shared preferences, internal storage, external storage. Shared preferences are to store some data about your application in a specific file. It may be string, integer, boolean, etc. So today we will discuss about how to store data or retrieve data from shared preferences. So let's start with shared preferences. So I am here creating a new file and giving the name to it, store shared prefs. In shared preferences we store data by identifying a specific key and fetch the value by that specific key. So let's initialize our shared preferences. And let's say M shared. This is the variable. So let's initialize some keys over here. Let's say private static string, then M username, private static string M user number, private static string M user age, private static string, so let's say is login, and private static string. So we have to create keys by default of a string data type, and then we have to use shared preference. So let me use it as private static. So we have to use these keys outside the class, so I have to use this as public, right? Because I have to call these variables outside this class. So now we have to initialize our shared preference. So what we have to do, public static void init, and I have to pass the context of the class, and then what we have to do, if shared preference M shared preference equals to null, then only then we have to initialize it, else we have to use the current instance of the shared preference. Get context dot get shared preference, right? So in get shared preferences we have to store a name of shared preference here and the mode of the shared preferences. So we have multiple modes: private mode, mode writable, mode readable in the shared preference. So private mode means to store the data within the application. If we are using mode readable, so we are giving other applications a right to read the shared preference of our application. So here we have to define the shared preferences name. So let's say our application name is storage, so we are using here storage app, right? And then we have to define the mod here. So these are the multiple mods here in the shared preferences, and the last one is append mode, which is to append the new data of shared preferences. So in our tutorial we are using here private mode, right? And that's it. We have initialized our data. So we have initialized our shared preferences here. Now what we have to do, we have to create a method over here which says write data. So we have to define here the key which are mentioned above, right? But we have to give the values to these keys, right? So let's give the value to them as a string, right? And now how to add the data here. So we have to do shared preference dot editor, right? Editor class is to edit the data into the shared preferences. So we have to edit the data in our preferences, so we will do m preferences shared preferences dot add, right? Then what we have to do here, we will add here editor. So let's see what editors say to put, apply, clear, commit preferences, right? So let's say we are using put string here, which means we have to store the username. So what we have to do by default, to store any string, we have to generate, or we have to create two parameters, which mean the first one is a string key and the second one is string value, right? So what it means, that we are storing the key and the value of data type string, and then we will say editor dot commit, right? So we can use also apply here because commit is deprecated. So let's say write. Now we have to write data of integer variable, right? So what we have to do, write string key. The key will be string, the value can be int, boolean, etc., right? The value will be of integer variable, right? And same as we did here, so just copy it and paste over here, right? It says key and value, just remove this, and the value is about. So we have to switch here put string to put integer, right? Int, that's it. And now we have to create here a boolean variable also. So let's say boolean, so it will remove and put boolean. right? So this is the way to write the data in the shared preferences. Now see how to read the data from shared preferences, right? So let's say so we have to use public over here because these are the public method to store or write the data within the application with a single instance, right? So we are reading a string variable. Okay, so we have to ensure that if the preferences return null, what we have to define. So we have to assign here the default value. So single line code here, m.sharedPreference.get string. So we are getting the key and storing it into default variable, right? So what we did here, we return the shared preferences string variable of the key with the default variable, right? So let's copy it and return the integer and boolean data, right? Integer and then just get int here because we are using integer, so we have to say that default value will be integer, and then last is boolean, right? Boolean here also and get boolean, right? So if we want to clear the data, what we have to do, public static clear data and m.sharedPreferences.clear. So to clear the data, we will say m.sharedPreference.get all data, whatever the data is, and then clear, right? So what we have done here, we initialize some variable and initialize the shared preferences here, then give the shared preference a name and the context to save the data in private mode, right? And then write the data of string variables, integer and boolean, and then read from the specific type. And now then we created here the clear data options. So in this activity, let's create a view. So I'm creating here the layout first. To enter user name, so we have to create edit text over here to create the username. and after submit button, so that's it, right? We have to write here the text color will be white, so let me show you the design over here. So we just designed these added text and one button over here, and the title of this activity is shared preferences. So hope you will like this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, share it with your friends. Also subscribe this page and stay connected with us. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. See you with another tutorial. Inshallah. Allah Hafiz.